This video has been pulled from the archives of the Team Deakins podcast. The audio version of Season 2, Episode 1 was released in September 2020. Today, we're talking special effects. We have with us a master of special effects, and we've had the pleasure of working with him several times. He's worked on such movies as Edge of Tomorrow, SPECTRE, 1917, and The Batman. We're pleased to welcome Richard Cheal with us today. Thank you, Richard, for doing this.
Yes, thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. Nice to see you guys again. Be talking to you.
Yeah. We'd like to start with the question, how did you get to where you are today? Was this something you always knew you wanted to do? Was it a straight path, or did you start somewhere else, or what happened?
It was, I'm going to say it was a straight path. For me, it was seeing Empire Strikes Back in the cinema as a child.
Ah,
And at that time, such movies like Superman were coming out and showing sort of groundbreaking special effects um, through the eyes of Derek Meddings, who used to be one of the sort of top special effects guys for miniatures anyway. And that was where my passion sort of came in there. And so my grandfather actually gave me a cine camera. And although cine film was very expensive back then, to kind of, it was cheap to buy, but to get it developed was something completely different. But
yeah.
he also had the projector and the screen, and I used to build Airfix models in my parents' back garden, and then load them up with matches, and
Wow.
steal petrol from my dad's jerry can, and do a line of fuel going up to the plane, car, whatever I'd built, and try and film it on cinefilm, and
Wow.
and that's where it kind of started really, and I must have been about 9, 10 years old back then. So then from there, I I sort of did quite well at arts at school, and I was given a scholarship to Kent Institute of Art and Design at quite a young age. I was um, I was 15. I was doing my GCSEs, and they gave me a place um, where I was extremely young to go to that institute, but they gave me a place anyway. And I struggled for 2 years because I was quite young. But then from there, I studied model making and 3D design. And then after that, I knew I wanted to get into film. And Derek Meddings at the time was making Goldeneye at Leavesden Studios.
Wow.
So the only way that you could get into the studios at that time was to either know somebody who was working in there, maybe your father, your grandfather, your mother, um, or you played the waiting game. And I didn't have any family within the industry at the time, so I still don't. But I managed to just sit outside of Leavesden Studio for a couple of weeks until somebody took my CV. It was actually a security guard that took my CV in. I remember coming home on the train because I didn't have a mobile phone at the time. They were kind of non-existent. And then
Right.
I got back home and there was an answer phone message on my parents' phone asking if I could come in on Monday and make some model trees.
Wow.
So in I went, and that was it. And
Wow.
that was back in 1994, and it's just been going ever since, really. So, but between there, I've done different things. I've done a lot of pop promos. I worked for Vivienne Westwood, designing and building her catwalks for her for fashion shows.
Oh,
And
wow.
How did that
I've
come?
also, well,
It's
I
not
used
very
to
left
do,
field for working with
yeah.
Meddings to
Well, a friend of mine, we used to do a lot of TV commercials as well. And a friend of mine, Robert Pinner, lovely chap, was a tree surgeon, but he's also a very good friend of Vivian. And I used to get him in wherever we needed a tree to do a specific thing for a commercial. And he'd turn up with these ginormous trees, in the middle of sort of East London, where alleyways are really difficult to get in. Sort of like Arctic lorries would just pull up. These magnificent giant trees would just turn up, completely sort of unacceptable for the job. But we'd have to cut them down outside and, drag them up flights of stairs. But it was through him that we sort of collaborated and did lots of the Paris fashion shows and London Fashion Week. And so yeah, it was just a general use of our crafts and skills that we made together, and tried to produce these sort of catwalks. And then from there, I've done pop promos. I've worked for Pink Floyd. I've made lots of Pink Floyd album covers. Back for a company that I worked for in London called Model Solutions. I worked there for on and off for 10 years. So it's been, it's quite diverse, really. And I think the bigger the industry gets, the more time you spend at the studio now, or you're in it for good. So it's been a great journey. I look back at some of the things. I don't know if you feel the same, but you never measure anything in years anymore. You just measure it in films, or projects you're doing. So when someone says, "Oh, that was back in 2000," you're like, "Christ, was it? God." And then it felt like four films ago, but
Exactly.
it's a bit like that, really. So, but that's and here we are today. Just finished Empire of Light and on with the next one.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
that's
so
good.
you did a lot of models in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Model making. And
Mm.
so does it seem that the films use less models now? They do more visual effects than models. And what's the difference when you actually use a model versus doing it by visual effects?
I think, and there's always going to be an argument there, but I think that the two departments collaborate very well together.
Hmm.
I think, if you look at some of the films that have just used pure models with no CGI, some of them can look a little bit hammy, some of them can't, and but there's some particularly great movies out there with model usage. Moon is one of my favorite
Yeah.
films. If you look at the models that were made in that picture, I know the guys that worked on that, they worked incredibly hard, and the detail in those models and the photography of it, because at the end of the day, it's all about the positioning of that camera and
Right.
how you can cheat, what is either a foreground miniature or so. To me, I think that the two collaborate very well. You can use a model and then you can embellish it with CGI, and so one of the beautiful things about working on a Bond film was that they were always quite keen to use a miniature in there, whether it be Skyfall, where we shot the miniature house, the helicopter, the DB5 was a model. So all of those, there is a time and a place for it, I think. And sometimes it sits beautifully on the screen. I still if you look at some of the old classics like Superman and, even some of Spielberg and Richard Donner's work in Goonies was all miniatures.
Mhm.
They look amazing still. And I think sometimes you're forgiving if you can see it's a model, but
Yeah.
it's in an action scene. The music's there and it's shot well. I think your mind just runs away with the theatre of the whole thing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. It's I mean, it is a lost art, but some
Mhm.
films, we did the last Star Wars production with JJ, and we were out in Jordan, and we had a model there that we shot as a foreground miniature, and it worked beautifully. Yeah, and it was all to do with the photography and also the natural light that we had. And it was a sunset, it was coming down. There was the model, and we had some people just in the background, and they were the right size,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
walking up into this model.
can you talk in a bit more detail about that? Then talk about the lineup and the shot and how does that actually work then?
So the shot was, I can't remember the name of the particular vehicle that they used, but it was there was a vehicle that um the Jawas, they're called, travel around the desert in this huge
Yeah.
kind of sort of, it's almost like a square box on wheels, a very slow moving tank. And it pulls up, and I think they used it in the very first Star Wars. They used it in the New Hope, and then we had the same model for episode 9, I think it was.
Mm.
Anyway, we had exactly the same model, and JJ was very keen to use a foreground model somewhere in the film, whether it be the Falcon that was going to be crashed into a hillside, or whether it was going to be this particular model. And I think the argument was that the way that we're going to sell this is the lighting. I think, and it was a dusk shot, so we had the sun setting in the background, and they wanted to see the kind of the red sun, the in the background, the mountains. The Jawas, we actually used children. They were placed 50 feet away from the model,
Mm.
and they were dressed up, and they were standing around a little campfire that we'd built for them, and the model was brought very close towards camera. It was like a 12-degree angle, and we'd raised it up on a Jonesy deck, and we were just pulling it just gently into shot using fishing wires, and that was it.
Wow.
So, it just came in, and it pulled up, and it stopped, and the guys were there. I mean, the shot's probably 3 seconds long, less than that, but it worked perfectly. And it was lovely to see, actually. Just brought back a lot of memories of, model making, having so much super glue on my fingers and spending evenings picking it all off. And, but it's come, over the years, it's come in handy, the model making, and you can push it through to special effects in some respects. You always want your effect to look good on screen, and you always want to embellish a shot. That's our job. It's how can we help the director? How can we help you? How can we make we're not the ones with the suggestions, but we will try our best to be able to push something in, maybe foreground or background or
Right.
something, just to bring it alive. And it's the same with model making. If you made a model and it's just a one flat color, and you don't paint it or you do anything like that, it just looks like a model. So then if you start embellishing it and you start putting some life into it, then that's where it works. And it's the same with effects. If you look at a shot that you guys line up, we want to try and embellish that. Maybe there's some steam coming in the background or something. So some kind of movement, that just makes a picture sing a little bit more.
When you watch a movie that you didn't work on, can you tell it's a model or not? Probably you don't want to be able to tell, because then maybe that's a bad thing. But
Yeah, it's a difficult one, really. I think all the movies I'm watching at the moment are so moody, and like they're just characters at the moment. I've seen so many effects movies that they just do all too fast movie at the moment for me.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I suppose yes, I do. I look at what I like to do is look at the smaller budget films, because I like to know their process and how things are put together.
Hmm.
And that's quite important for me. I think filmmaking, um, there's an element of it gets lost in all this franchise world that's going on at the
Yeah.
moment and things like this. And I like a film to be like a traveling circus, and you're all playing a part in making something, spectacular. And so I don't know. I like watching the kind of smaller budget, the lower end films, because I know the craftsmanship that goes behind those, and I know that if I look at some effects in those, and they're amazing, and you can always tell they're amazing because I think people really want it to work. The effects guys or the model makers, the prop
Mm.
makers, the art department, they really go 100% in making something, out of nothing sometimes, and some of those sort of smaller budget films, I look at those and I love the effects in them. I think they look great and wonderful. Some of the bigger budget stuff, I don't know,
It's
it's
too
just all
much.
too, yeah, it's too
They
much. It's
can.
too, yeah, it's because
Mm.
they can. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I think I do. I don't know. I try and switch off now when I watch a movie. I
Yeah.
spent
We do
years.
too.
I spent years sort of like analyzing everything, every little detail. But now, we've got the kids there and everyone's sitting around. You just want to make. And it's very rare that we all get to sit down and watch a film together.
Right.
So, but yeah, I just kind of try and switch off now.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's very important that people get to the cinema to watch a film, because that is the one place where you can switch off, I think,
Yes.
to watch a movie. There's no interruptions, and that's where you get lost in the theater of it all.
Which is what we're trying to create. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important. It's very easy to stream a film or do this now, or do that, but it's watching a film in the right environment, and whether it be an action film or it could be a love story, could be this, could be that. I think if you want to get lost in there, you need to be in that room watching it. And
Right.
I still think it's the only way to watch a movie.
Well put. Yeah. Yeah. I also think when you're shooting, I always like it because there's always that decision, what's visual effects, what's this, what's that. I like it when it's special effects because you're there when it's happening. And I feel like everybody responds to that, not just the people working on the set, but the actors and everything, because you have created this reality and it's actually
Yeah.
functioning in front of you.
It's so much fun
Yeah.
doing it as
Yeah.
well, isn't it?
Much more
I
fun.
mean, when I started, sound like an old man, but I mean, we were doing glass shots and stuff.
Yeah.
We were doing effects that would now be done on a computer. We were doing them live, and it was so
Yeah.
much fun. Yeah, it was a
Mhm.
challenge, but when you actually got something that would work, when
Yeah.
you put 3 layers together, or you wound the film and shot it in sync with a second element and stuff. I mean, it was a joy when it came out.
Yeah. No, it's great. I think when things work and they work well, and I think sometimes we often surprise ourselves,
Yeah.
But I think that when they do work, and there's a lot of testing that goes on.
Yes.
During a prep, there's a lot of testing period, and there are some extremely clever guys in special effects that can make things just so perfect, and so amazing. I mean, some of their mechanical rigs that they build, and some of the bigger rigs that you've seen, there's some very talented crew out there. The UK is especially, there's some of the finest sort of special effects, and other crew members. They really are a talented bunch. But I think when something does work, and it's so satisfying, especially if you get a thumbs up from you guys, or you get a thumbs up from your director or something like that, because the process of getting there is never as easy as what everyone thinks. There is a
Right.
lot of testing that goes in it. It's weeks and weeks, and it's a process that you have to do. And I think you also have to think about not just one backup plan. There's got to be another one, or got to be another one here. It's because things change so last minute. A position can change, or something could do this. You can
Right.
never nail anything down. So you've got to be prepared
Flexible.
to
Yeah.
cover all bases. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can get, say you're working on a gag to do something, in particular at the moment, we're working on a guy who is coughing up loads of blood for a film inside a sort of a cylindrical chamber that's going to fill with smoke, and he starts coughing, and then he's got to cough blood towards the screen. They want to do it all practical. So these are little
Great.
blood rigs that we are hiding, in the actor's neck and things like this, and they can shoot out just the right amount of blood. It's got to make the right shape on the glass. It's got to run. The color's got to be right. We've got to make sure that we don't suffocate the guy, and we've got to get rid of smoke quickly. All of this kind of thing. So these are all those elements that you have to think of. But we know that on the day, wherever that camera goes, it's going to be completely different to where we thought it was going to be. And so we need to make sure that we're flexible to move around on that day and make
And
sure it works.
I think another thing that's also difficult that you have to do is it has to be repeatable. You
Yeah,
have to do the
exactly.
same thing each time, so we all know that's where this thing is going to land, and that's actually a lot
Yeah,
harder than it seems.
yeah, yeah. And you need to be quick at repeating it
Yeah.
as well. It's like we haven't got long. We got to
Yes,
move
right.
here.
Right. What are we waiting for?
Yeah, yeah. That's
So
where learning comes
yeah,
in.
right, right. What are we waiting for?
Yeah.
Um, so when you start a film, you obviously have to sit down with the director and everyone and decide what's in your ballpark, what's visual effects. If it's a stunt thing, what you're adding to stunts, right? I mean, you have to decide how much you're doing in each scene, right?
So I think it's definitely a collaboration between departments there. I suppose
Mhm.
if you're with the stunt department, I know for a fact that on Batman, Dominic Toohey was kind of he was so involved with the second unit car chase, and um, I mean, I think he did a fantastic job. I mean, you look at the film, the car chase is just
Yeah.
it the structure of it is great, and everything in there was physically done. They built some amazing cars and trucks. Big hydraulic trucks that sort of lifted over on one side and then sort of like reset themselves. And I think when they sat down with the stunt department, they've got like a big. It's almost like playing a giant game of Risk. Like they're moving the pieces
Yeah,
around
right.
on the board. Their car needs to be here, here, here. And it's magnificent to see them all working it out. But you definitely need to have those conversations and the structure with the stunt department. Uh, and they work very well together. We I think for the stunt department, they always want a bit more out of us. We give them a bit more, and then we give them it. They break it, and then they bring it back to us, and then they break it again, and then. But then that's all part of the process. It's all the testing. So
Right.
if they can't put it through its maximum, we're never going to know what our product can do for them. So they put everything through its paces. But yeah, no, it's definitely. And then with the director, we try and. I mean, mainly these days we're all working off of a laptop with a previs or something like that. That something's been
Mhm.
drawn up, but like you can add suggestions on things that would look great. This would look
Mhm.
great there, or we could do this. It's all about offering our services and trying to make the best, or not trying to make it better. Like I said, try and embellish their idea and their shot.
Mhm.
So I think it's more about that for us.
How much prep time do you have then on a film like Batman? How much time are you on before actual photography starts?
Um, I'm going to say I think Batman was about 18 to 20 weeks prep.
Wow. That's
Mm,
a lot.
yeah.
Yeah, it's quite
I
a
don't think
while.
I've ever been on a movie that long, let alone prep.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of drawings that go on. There's a lot of designs, and there's a lot of things that have to be signed off. And if you are a director and you're having 50 to 60 drawings turn up on your desk a day, all with different sets,
Mm.
designs, from props to the set deck, from CAD drawers from our department, it's a lot to sign off and have a look at each day. So, it is a process. And for the more sort of heavier engineering things like the Batmobiles and things like that, the CAD drawers were on that for a long time before. They were some of them left 1917 early
Right.
to go off and start drawing those Batmobiles. But that was another incredible job that they did there. I mean, those
Well,
cars were
yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah.
and they did an amazing job.
And that was falling under special effects then?
Yeah,
Because there
that was
was
special. Yeah,
fire in the back of it and all that.
yeah. Well, we actually we built the cars. So we
Wow.
the special effects department, Dominic Two special effects
Mhm.
department, they built 5 cars in total. They was it four cars? I think it was. I think it was 3 petrol and 1 electric. And
Wow.
so they built 3 V8 engine cars, one electric. And then there was obviously cars to go on gimbals and rigs and things like that. So, but they were all built within the special effects department. And then, yeah, we did the explosions, the bangs, everything like that. You know, everything that you see. A lot of that film, although there are a lot of visual effects in it, but there is a hell of a lot of our work in that. So it was kind of one to be proud of, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the most extraordinarily well shot films. You know,
We saw it the other
visualized
night.
film.
Yeah. Again.
Yeah,
Watched it
yeah,
twice. Yeah, I mean, it's
yeah.
extraordinary, the detail in it. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
Yeah, it's good. It's good, and it tells a good story as well. And I
yeah.
think it's just a different look at Batman. You know, it's. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a difficult job to do, obviously, because we were shooting right through the middle of COVID there, and
Yeah.
when that hit, and it made things very difficult. And there was a lot of nights on that job, and also every stage was completely pitch black as well. So it's because we were shooting during the winter, and then we broke for COVID, so we had a lovely summer. Then we went back to it. It was dark in the evenings again, so you never saw the light of day. You know, sort of morphing into Batman myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great fun. It was. They're all good fun. You know, they are. You know, there hasn't been a job that I've never really not enjoyed. So I think you pull elements from different things, and you know, I loved being in Margate. I just thought it was a great location. I think, and for me, I kind of grew up at my grandparents' house, which was just down the road in Birchington. So
All right.
I kind of I know
You
knew it.
Yeah, I mean that the cinema that we shot in, I actually saw Superman 3 in there with my granddad. But so
Yeah.
yeah, no, it brought back a lot of memories. But there's something quite sort of magical about that coast there. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's maybe it's the light, maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's a 5-minute walk to work, which is lovely. But,
Yeah.
Kind of nice.
I don't know. Yeah, no, it's great. I'm very looking forward to seeing the film. So
Yeah. Well, they say it's good. So we're going to see it soon, but we'll see.
good.
So also in Batman, there was a bomb robot that came in to
Yeah.
yeah. Was
Yeah.
that you guys also? Did you?
No, that was real. That was
a real bomb.
that was a
robot?
real bomb disposal robot. Yeah,
Wow.
brought in by a couple of guys. Yeah, amazing to watch though.
I'll
Very
bet.
clever.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
And then on his vest, Peter's vest, there were blinking lights. I know these are stupid questions, but I'm always curious who does what. So was that in props or was that?
Yeah, that would have been props. Yeah. Props,
So when
yeah.
does props take care of things and when do you take care of things?
I think if there's something that's quite mechanical, we tend to take over with things. There was a scene. I'm just going to pull one out from Batman. I suppose there's a scene where he stands on top of a building and he pulls a cord and his cape wraps around him into a wingsuit, and he jumps off the building there. So that was us because it's something that it's got movement in it. It's like it's a process that has to happen there. So that sort of falls under us. If it's a look thing, then it's rather it's a prop really. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Batman's flying then. How involved are you with the
wires.
stunts and the wiring?
Yeah. So yeah, we did. We had we had that whole suit gag that that we had air rams and all sorts in that thing that sort of popped it round, and then the actual flying wingsuit. The stunts had him on a harness. We built a little fiberglass chest plate, and then the stunts would wire him up. And then we had a V8 petrol wind machine on him, one of our biggest wind machines that we've got. And we were just hitting him full force with everything that we had out of that V8 just to get that movement on the wingsuit.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think yeah, I can't remember. God, it's so long ago now, that job. But yeah,
But he's actually flying against blue screen, right? And the rest of the back
he
CG or
we were shooting in against LED panels in there. So
yeah.
yeah, we had that whole. I don't know if you've seen any
Yeah.
of Greg's stuff that he's done
Yeah.
with. So yeah, we had that whole. I can't remember the volume catcher or
Yeah,
not volume
yeah.
catcher. Volume.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we shot in there against those, and they're great. I mean, you can move those panels around wherever. You know, we used them all over the car as well when we had the car and the gimbal. And they're, you know, I mean, it's come a long way since the old rolling background of
Yeah,
the
really.
Carry On films.
George
but
Lucas, yeah.
yeah,
Oh, amazing.
no, it's good. Yeah, it's good.
Then what
It's good.
happens? I mean, so much of that film, as you said, was very dark, but also there's an incredible amount of rain.
Yes, that was gonna
Yeah,
I mean, that's obviously down to you, isn't it? I mean, doing
yeah.
rain effects. But then again, when do you make the decision if you're doing against a an LED screen or something? Does that mean you can actually use live effects on set rather than
Yes.
if you were doing against blue screen?
We did. We did. So in the volume catcher, we did use rain. We had to make very precise rain rigs that were
Right.
only for. I mean, these rigs were we made them out of copper piping. They were on big steel frameworks, and we hoisted them up into the reds. And we made them in sort of panels of like 20 foot by 10 foot, so we could move these panels around. And we sort of slotted them all in like a jigsaw puzzle, really.
Right.
And up in the reds. And it's very difficult because, you know, when you look at a stage and you've got a volume catcher, then you've got spark stuff, and then you've got everything else to set, there's not much room left
right.
in the
Yeah.
ceiling to put these things. But yeah, we managed to squeeze them in, but they had to be so precise because I think any of those LED panels really do that well with water. So
Right.
Yeah.
so everything has to fall straight down, and then we had to build huge tanks underneath, catchment tanks. There's a lot of water management on those jobs, and you know, throughout those takes, and they were long takes. You know, we would shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot, and in that time, you know, you've got big bladders outside which are filled with, you know, 15 to 20,000 gallons of water in them or more, you know, and they are just emptying constantly.
Oh
So
my gosh.
and so we're having to fill those up, fire tankers, refilling them, you know, all while we're shooting. So, you know, it's not just inside the stage you see all those effects. There's lots of people outside, you know, making it happen. You know, it's quite a big job. But all of the when we shot on the back lot of Leavesden, all of the sort of downtown Gotham City stuff, and it's just huge amounts of rain. You know, I mean, it was like, I mean, it looked like a monsoon down there when, you know, it was all going. And but it was great. It looks great, and you think at the time it's tricky. You know, it's always hard to work in rain. It's pouring down. You're pulling kit in and out. You forget all about it when you're sitting down and you're
right.
cinema seat and you're watching it. Yeah, I know. Yeah, but no, it's good. It's good. I actually quite like working in the rain. It's I don't know. There's a good feeling about it.
Says a lot about you.
Yeah, really, because I don't hear very many people saying that. But did visual effects add any of the rain too? Did they have to do anything in the background or?
Probably would have done. Yeah, I mean, they had to extend the sets, you know, because I mean, although it's a magnificent set, probably I'm going to say 200 feet long by 100 feet wide. That's it. It was a big. I mean, it's pretty much quite a big chunk of the backlot at Leavesden. And a great set with great lighting. And I just think, you know, they had to extend miles and miles like on because like these huge streets in Gotham City, you know, it's a big,
Yeah.
you know, and I must admit, looking at the film, the visual effects did very well. I thought, you know, they because I could pick up some of the parts that I knew that we'd shot, and then when you see their stuff, but I think they've done a fantastic job with it. It looks really good.
Well, I have to say, I find it really hard to see the join.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you know when it's a LED screen in the background simply because
Yeah.
you don't really have mid-grounds. But
No. No.
I mean, that's been really picky. But on
Yeah.
those street things, it was amazing how the blend worked, and especially
Yeah.
with the effects. That's what I was really interested in, because you're doing the foreground rain, but then they're
Yeah.
picking that up and extending that all the way down.
Yeah. I know, it's brilliant. I mean, they did shoot a lot of elements of rain and things
Right.
like this, so they've got that, to
Yeah.
take with them. But when you saw that, I mean, if you could see that rain there, I mean, it was like within minutes, it was 2 inches deep around your feet. I mean, it could be, it was quite something. But yeah, I mean, it's so much so. I think when you switch the whole lot on, it was just too much. We just had to turn it. We had to knock it down, and then it was just. But I think eventually we would spray everything down, and you just have bits dripping.
Dripping. Yeah.
Yeah, which also tells a story as well. So,
And
but no,
were there any models in the Batman?
only of the model of the car that they'd build, just to have a look at it to see,
Oh.
But yeah, I think the miniature side of stuff now is so long
Yeah.
gone, which is such a shame.
It
But,
is a shame. Yeah.
yeah, I would love to see a film made by one of the sort of old bigger directors, someone like Spielberg. If he could
Mhm.
take another film now and make it how we used to make a film,
Yeah.
and with models and with creatures, puppets, whatever it was. I'd
Yeah.
love to see that redone again, and not to use visual effects, but go back to some of the optical effects that they used to use. I'd love to see
Right.
someone challenge themselves to try and do that again now. But it'd be interesting to see, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And on the Batman, there was a lot of shooting. Did you use squibs? Because it's
Yeah.
always
Oh my
funny
God.
to me when they don't, and they
Yeah.
say we'll do it afterwards.
So many squibs. Yeah.
I'll bet.
There were so many. Yeah. I mean, we used we used a huge selection of pyro, the squibs on that, and also we used a lot of Zerk hits, we call them, which is effectively a paintball gun with sparking balls in there.
Ah.
So instead of paintballs, but
We should
for
explain for people who don't know what squibs are.
yeah, so a squib is a small pyrotechnic that you would use as effectively a bullet hit on a cinema production,
Mhm.
instead of using live arms or. Um, so a squib, especially for a bullet hit, maybe on someone, would be a little detonator that we'd put onto a metal plate, and you could either put some dust in front of it, or you could put a small blood bag in front of it. That could go behind an actor's clothing,
Mhm.
and then wires would come down to a small battery pack on a remote, which the actor could either hold the button, or a special effects person could be firing the button.
Mhm.
And then that would and when they do fire it, it ignites and just gives us a little sort of either a sort of burst of dust, or red dust, or red liquid blood, whatever.
Yeah.
So, and those squibs can be everything. They can be just a little sort of spark hit, can be a smoky hit, they can, or just or a dust hit, but there's so many different sort of variants of these that. But we used mainly on that film. We used zirconium balls, which it's a small plastic ball filled with zirconium, and we put that in the paintball gun, and when it hits the wall, they just spark. The elements brush together and they spark. So we use a lot of those to fire at cars, or moving cars, or anything where we can't really trail a load of wires to, or if we need something to happen very quickly, we could just load up a gun and either pepper a wall with those, or
Yeah.
you'd never really shoot them at people, but it would always be an object. Yeah.
Right.
Is
Oh.
that getting less the norm, actually, to do it in camera with? Because and we've worked on films that where they've just said, well, we'll just do the hits CG.
In post. Yeah. I think so. Yes. I think it is. I mean, I think there's a time and a place for it. I do. It's funny, you know. I think obviously setting up pyro takes time because there's
Yeah.
a safety factor
Right.
involved,
And
and
it also
but
requires wardrobe multiples, right? If it's making
exactly,
a whole.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, exactly, and so they do take time. I think to me, I mean, we still use quite a few. You know, that mainly not so much on cast members these days. You know, it used to be the norm to be able to
mm,
go to someone to wire up. You know, I mean, say for instance, on Batman, there's a scene where Robert pulls his cape round, and
mhm,
there's a load of bullet hits go off on his cape, and
mhm,
they were done for real. I had to sort of stitch in 12 squib hits into his cape, and
mm.
it's a process. You know, that
Yes.
cape is like 3 layers thick, and trying to
Yeah.
pass cables through it, and
Mm,
but yeah, that it does take time, and you want to make it look right, and so yeah, I do feel it is getting a little bit. I don't know. Films surprise me some days. You know, there'll be a director that says, "No, I want everything done for real." So,
mhm.
and there'll be those that will just do it in post afterwards. So,
I
director's preference, really. I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The one thing about squibs is it gives the actors something to react to. So you see
Yeah,
or they'll be pushed
yeah,
back by it or whatever. So
yeah,
to me,
sure.
it makes it a little realer. But
Yeah,
What about the gun flash itself now?
yeah. Well, we've built quite a few rigs for gun flashes using LEDs. Particularly, but going back to a lighting effect
mhm,
for for a gun flash, we tend to use squibs for a lot of lighting effects. So if a camera's on an actor's face and we want to see that flash of, we would load up a stick, maybe with 20 squib hits,
mhm,
and we'd let those off one by one, because I don't think you get anything as bright as
Right.
something, uh, you know, like a squib. I don't think a light can ever really match it. You know, it's almost like the arc of a welder. You know,
Right.
that flash you
Yeah.
get from
yeah.
there. It's so bright and it's so quick, and it's,
Mhm,
you know, they're hard to beat. You know,
mhm,
it's like looking at the old flash bulbs as well.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
you never really simulate that so much. I mean, you can get there with a light, but I don't know. I think they're super bright, and you know, I think on 1917 when we did the explosion in the bunker,
mhm,
where he walks over
Mm,
the rat trap, the
mm.
tripwire,
mhm,
we used just one single flash bulb in there, and I think the effect in there that it gives in such a dark room is just amazing. You know, it's like
mhm,
gone. So,
mhm.
Mm, mm.
but yeah, so we do use squibs as a lighting effect as well, and they're brilliant. I think they're very good. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah,
And when
uh,
you use squibs, you don't necessarily have to use a real gun, right?
no,
Which
no,
is
not at
a
all.
good
I
thing.
think, yeah, I mean, I think that's just becoming more and more
One would hope.
kind of, yeah, one would
Yes.
hope, yeah.
Yeah, let's not.
Um, yeah, I don't really see, I haven't actually been on a film where there's been a real weapon involved for a long time now. I
Mhm,
think 1917 was probably the last film that I was on where we used a real gun. Oh, no, Batman, actually. It was Batman. We did
mhm,
use sort of blank firing weapons, but
Mm,
mhm.
mm,
all supervised, obviously.
mm.
Yeah, yeah. Very important.
Yeah.
That one
Mhm.
particular scene in Batman that's really intrigued me is when the city floods,
Yeah.
and you have that wonderful sequence where Batman's trying to save the people that are on the structure and the deck above or whatever it is, the construction above,
In the
sort of
center of the
fusing
space.
and
Yeah.
electronic
Yeah.
flashing. And then there's a great red flare that goes over the whole thing. To me, that's a quite extraordinary sequence. So,
Yeah.
what were you involved in on that? How was that all done?
Well, so there was a tank built at Cardington Studios for that particular shot. So it was quite a big tank, and there was a hydraulic rig in there with a police car that kind of tumbles down. And you'll
Mm,
see it kind of move into shot, and it traps a guy.
Mhm,
And then for the flares, we use a similar kind of flare that we used in 1917 to do the arcs.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's it. But they're a magnesium flare. They get very hot. They so they're made up to a certain color that we can use. So for us, it will be lighting that flare and then passing it to Robert, or he'll do it himself, showing him how to ignite those. But for the cables all coming down, once again, that is pyro loaded into a cable that's already pre-made. So in each individual wire in that cable, say it's a cable probably 4 inches thick, and you've probably got 25 smaller cables inside. Each individual one of those cables, we'd wire what we call a Z spark in there, and that is a pyrotechnic which just does little sparks. And each individual one of those, so they all go back to a box. They've been numbered, and then you would flick the switches like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they would spark individually. So when it's swinging and touching, you've got to have your eyes on what that's doing, and then you'll be on the button, flicking the switches and making sure that all fires off at the right time.
And then you have to reset in between takes.
Reset, or you'd have one already made.
Done.
This is where we go back to the prep of everything. You know that you're not just going to use one, you're going to use maybe 10 of these, so you'd have 10 made, and then you'd hang another one. It's there, you plug it straight into the box, and you're ready to go. So it's all in that prep time of ours. It's all about, how quickly can we turn things around and make it, put another one into position and ready to turn over on.
And do you try and figure out whether that director's multi-take director, or whether he tends to do less? Because that's important to know. I mean, you'll find out soon enough, but
I think it is. I think, I mean, there are some things that obviously you could just repeat, but then I think some things are budget restrictive as well, So we always tend to do 4, 5 takes of something, whatever it might be. But if you need more, we're often, look at the sandcastles on Empire of Light. It's like you just end up rebuilding it quick. It's how things how things are on the day, really. But you've always got a great team around. I've always worked with a good team of chaps that just get involved so we can make it happen quickly, and and that's how it is, I think.
And you shot tests for that sequence, the sequence we were just talking about. Did you?
The Batman?
Yeah, on the Batman. Did you shoot tests with Greg for that?
Yeah, Greg was always doing lighting tests.
And by the way, Greg is Greg
Yeah.
Fraser, who is a DP on that job.
Yeah, Greg would always, he's very thorough about his lighting tests. He's very rigorous with that. And so we shot many tests with the flare, but it's that is your only light source, really. So you need to be able to. So that was tested. Everything gets tested, through us, really. It's in particular the thing that we're doing at the moment with the blood and everything like that. We'll need to do a camera test to make sure that blood is the right color when it comes out on screen. It might be bright orange when it when it goes to film or digital, so it's very difficult. So everything needs, for us, it does need a bit of a camera test, especially the colors involved. So.
Yeah, do you find that more often now? Because I mean, thinking about the flare in Batman, but also the sequence in 1917. I mean, maybe years ago you would have thought, I might have thought about lighting that in some way, but in fact, it comes down to that. Actually, your work is actually lighting the shot. So you're working quite closely with a cinematographer, aren't you? And saying, well, this is where we want to put that flare, and this is how long it's got to last, and it's got to be right because it's actually lighting the shot.
Yeah, I do. Well, I think so. I think, I mean, everything is always a suggestion that we can put forward. I mean, we're not DOPs, we're not these people, but we know the brightness of something, and we know that it can maybe help in an element of something, So we know that the fact that a flare is very, very bright burns very hot as well, and they can be very dangerous. It's, we know that they're not ideal for lighting, but the effect that they give out, it's the same as using a squib. And we also know that an arc welder can give us a lovely flash of light across something. If you wanted a train going past, on Batman, for instance, there's an overhead, the overhead underground train that goes up, or their subway train that goes over Gotham City. We had 4 or 5 guys up the top there with arc welders and stick welding, just to throw flashes of light against buildings, like it's sparking wheels against the track.
Wow.
So it's all of those little elements that we put in, because it just, I don't know, it will make it live, and it makes it. So we do think about those lighting effects. We're always offering them up, whether we need them or not, we don't know. But they're there, and we always have them up our sleeve. I think to just to try and we always like to just push our things in a little bit. But yeah, no, it's funny because we're not. I suppose for us, lighting. I mean, the lighting is your job at the end of the day,
Right.
or But we do like to, if we can, just for instance, on the top of the cinema in Dreamland, it was like, can we give you a wet down here? Would that be any? I mean, although it turned the place into an ice skating rink, yeah,
They did.
it did. But I think just sometimes, you've got that beautiful neon light, and you just make
Yeah.
more of it, and
Yeah.
so sometimes a wet down can help with things like that, or and especially that I like seeing neon in puddles. I don't know about you guys, but there's something about it that's still
Yeah.
quite sexy to me, and it's still
Yeah.
quite, I don't know, but yeah, that's why we're always offering, our service. Oh, do you need this here? Would you need that there? This is why I'm always shadowing you and just trying to find out what you'd like. And it's the same with any DP, really. You want to see their frame, what they're setting up, and then how can we help in any way. So
Must be quite a different challenge for you working on like a Batman with a crew of, I don't know how many people you had, probably 50, and then going to something like Empire of Light. Oh,
yeah,
in a way, even 1917, where some days must demand a lot of people and other days not so many. I mean,
yeah,
how do you
yeah.
feel about the different approaches?
I think yeah, it was difficult. It's always a challenge. Yeah, Batman, I mean, is such a monster. There's so much prep involved. I mean, it's gigantic. I mean, Don Toohey's head must have been bursting like some days. I know it was, but he done such a great job of that film and holding all that together. And things change so quickly as well, that like the logistics of everything. It's taught me a lesson on Empire of Light, really, because things change due to COVID and all of that kind of stuff. So your schedule all goes out the window. So where you think you've just got something in plan and in place, it's
Yeah.
all changing.
True.
And I think that's the nature of the beast anyway. But it's I think as soon as you can kind of learn to say, right, well, don't worry about it, we just get it done. I think that's the sort of, if you have that sort of working ethic of the film industry, we just get it done, we'll roll with it. I think that's the best way to be. But it was tricky. Empire of Light, just having, I mean, mainly there was just me and my assistant Steve, who was great on the job, really helpful. And then when we had the bigger days with the snow days and things like that, then I had another 3 or 4 guys come down with me. Yeah, it was a challenge. It was a challenge. We did some long hours on that job, and put in some extra sort of really long hours. And but it's important for me to make sure that when you turn up to a set, you've got what you need. And You know, it's very you want to make films like that look beautiful. You want to make them look amazing. You know, I mean that film is a story, so you're
Mhm.
going to fall in love with the characters there. You're not meant to fall in love with the snow on the ground or anything like that, but you've got to help them to make them feel like
Yeah.
they're there, and
Yeah.
some of those wonderful wide shots that you put together there, they just looked great. And I just hope that, what we did sort of embellish that. But yeah, no, it was tricky just having a smaller crew or going from a big crew and then going to a smaller crew. But you do make it work.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it. You just do.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I was going to ask you, one's not less stressful than the other. It's not like a holiday going on to something like Empire Light.
no, I don't.
Well,
I'm being
I don't
ironic.
think many people
No.
would say that.
No, I don't think it is. I mean, I've found, I've done a few big films and I've done a lot of small films, and I don't find them equally stressful because you're always
Mm,
pushing to do your best, whatever the
yeah,
circumstances, aren't you?
I don't think I've never seen one more stressful than another. I mean, there have been times where they've been frustrating, I think, with especially when you're building a rig to do something, a special, particular something, And I remember I was doing a job just before Empire Light. I was working on a film called The Meg 2 shark film with
Mhm.
Jason Statham. And there was a particular rig that I was making on there where I just couldn't get it right. It was just frustrating. And I just needed a clear head. I needed to sort of just, and at one point I was thinking, God almighty, the amount of times I've built something, it's been all right and I've got away with it. But this time I'm struggling to just get
Yeah.
my head around. I mean, it was like, and I think one of the worst things was it was my idea. So, and I was like, yeah, I can make this work. And I was like, really? I was like, yeah, I can make it work. It'll be fine. But oh God, I couldn't make it work at all. It was
So
really
you never got it to
troublesome.
work?
No, I did. Yeah, we got it to work in the end, and it was fine. But I just remember for like 2 or 3 weeks, just feeling really frustrated with myself about. So that you do get days like that, or weeks, should I say, where things are quite frustrating. But we pulled it out of the bag, and it worked, and they shot it, and it was an effect, and it's not visual effects, which is great. So, but yeah, all jobs get frustrating, but I think there's always, I don't know, there's always that good self sort of, you've achieved something. If something's frustrating, you get through it, you've got that achievement. And I think that's a great feeling to have. So, I think when you get through, I know like just laying that snow down in Margate is a tricky situation. We're shooting in public, there are people sort of just plowing through that
No
snow.
matter what.
You've got kids eating it.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
That
You've
was
got
pretty
people
funny.
having snowball fights, throwing it in children's faces. It's just like, oh my God. But, you're just staring at these people. You think, God, well, you're going to have to shoot this. So,
Yeah.
but we made it work and it happened. And,
Yeah.
I think it did look great. And, you know, but yeah, it can be frustrating.
Yeah.
Jobs are easier with more people.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're harder with more people.
Yeah,
But,
that's true. More people to
yeah,
talk to. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
On 1917, I'm interested. Was there any particular difficulty in that because it was all happening as one take? I mean, often when you're doing an effect or you're doing anything
Yeah,
else, a piece of action, you can cut around something. You've
yeah,
got an option to get out of it with a cut.
yeah, yeah.
That we
I
did,
think,
right?
yeah, I think one of the most hardest days I've ever had on a film was on 1917, and it was that interior bunker shot where we did the explosion inside.
Ah,
And I think for me it was like particularly backbreaking. That's why, because I'd built a corner set piece made of rubber rocks that
right.
the actor George could lay in,
Mhm.
and we tested with George over and over again.
Mhm.
And I made some lightweight debris to go on top of him, some lightweight timbers and wood, beams that had come down. And we'd also tested different, along with Naomi, we tested dust in his mouth, which was sugar, all of that kind of thing.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think, and then those rocks, during the test that we shot for those, they just looked too light. Even though they were polystyrene, they covered in plaster, we needed to make them a bit heavier. They just weren't rolling
Yeah.
like a rock would. So then we put more weight into them, and then we ended up putting weight on one side of those rocks, heavier, so they would just drop and just stay. So each individual rock that was made for that, one side of it, they were all like loaded dice, really, in a way. So you rolled them and then they just stopped. So I mean, those two boys did magnificently well that day. The amount of takes that we did that day of that particular shot was just, quite immense. And I think having that set piece that went up into a very small set, but it was built up and up and up, and I had to climb up there every time to reset George inside. And you're just inches away from the sort of ceiling, really. My back,
Right.
you're focusing on making sure the cast is okay, and then you're placing the rocks down, and then. But there was that, and there was also the timing of everything.
Right.
If we're behind you or behind Pete or whatever it was, who's like going around that room, there were so many different wires that we had to pull. We had to put a wire for a bag to swing, and then there's the trap, and then there's then we're setting off the flash and the bang, and then the bang had to look like, that bang was a huge mortar pot that put in the side of the wall that we couldn't see. So, and even though it's just bursting CO2 through the room to give us a big cloud, we had to build a flap that would blow open and then shut again. So when we're back into the room, it's disappeared. It just looks like the wall again. And then there's obviously all of the debris that starts coming down from the set. So, for one set where you've got one guy coordinating everything, you've got 6 or 7 guys dotted in different positions, hiding in that set.
Yeah.
You've got it'll be like cameras moving around, mouse bag, pull the mouse bag, and bang, bang goes off, and debris comes down. So it all has to be coordinated, looking either at the monitor on your camera, because it's the only one that's really truly live. So it is, it's quite a mission sometimes to get it, get
And
it
it
right.
wasn't a
But
big set either. So
no,
putting
it's tiny,
in there
absolutely
was
tiny.
really
Yeah,
cool.
and and Jamie, who I'm working with at the time, is like 6'4". He's got to move in and around that set. So, yeah, no, but it's good fun, and I love the things like that. They're the best days, where because you can walk out of there, and it's something that you'll always take with you, something that you remember, and then they're the things that I love seeing, on the big screen, or because the amount of work that does go into that is actually incredible.
It really
Even
is.
all the way down to when that explosion goes off, and in the tunnel, you see all of the smoke. The guys are talking, dialogue's happening, and just behind them, you see all of the smoke just being vacuumed out. And it's like, and all those tests go on. We build the full size tunnel in our workshop, and everyone's squeezing in and around these bits of set pieces that we put up. But that's the only way that we can ever get a true test, is to build the set that size in our workshop and just test it there.
And the other one that I remember was when he in the final trenches, those white trenches, and then he gets up and he runs along, and there are all those explosions going. And
Yeah.
we had a number buried in the ground, but then once we finished with them, it was a big reset, and we would have to stop and do something else. But I remember the first take of that, because we couldn't really rehearse because it would use up those things. And that first take was probably one of the most amazing takes I've ever been a part of on the day.
Yeah.
And everyone afterwards came out and kind of high-fived one another because it was brilliant.
I think for a moment, everybody looks at each other and went, My God, that worked.
I know.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah.
said, I mean, I think that sequence, that take was the one I kind of feared most because it was, yeah, we couldn't really rehearse it. You could rehearse what the camera was going to do to an extent,
And it
but
was
then
timing.
George
It was
was
all
going to
that
be
time.
running with
Yeah.
explosions going off for real, and all the other guys,
Yeah.
extras, had to pass him. So you didn't really know what the relationship was going to be and
No, I know.
the camera was going
Yeah,
to
I mean, cinematic masterpiece. That I don't know how.
be.
And then there was the thing of the unexpected that actually did happen a lot during that take, because we had 400 extras or something who were told, whatever you do, don't harm the actor. But they got
Run
so
for the
excited in the whole thing. And I don't know if it was the first take or the second take, but they just rolled over George, and George went
George,
rolling. And normally you'd think that's the end of the take, but because George was George, he just got up, and the camera truck, for some reason, was able to stop and then start again. And George, so it was brilliant, although
Yeah.
not completely unplanned, because it also meant all the explosions had to be at a different time because you wanted them in camera. So
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
amazing.
I mean, that was incredible, really. I mean, you know, for us, we're never seeing any of that happen. We are basically laying flat on the ground, either under a green blanket, you know, trying not to get trodden on by
Yeah.
300 extras running
You
out.
were very excited.
Yeah, no, yeah. But you are, I mean, that's, you always got to be mindful of who's around something
know.
like that, you know, and, you know, that's where the safety aspect, you know, right before, there's so much testing that goes on,
Yeah.
you know, right back in the early days at Shepperton, we were testing those bands,
Mhm.
and you know, before Acoust was built, you know, it was just, we were testing to see, you know, what we could get away with, and you know, what looked right, and I think when it came to doing that, you know, there's big Dom had a big team talk with us in the morning.
Mhm.
You know, he's like, anything that goes wrong, anything you see danger, you just don't fire. That's it. You know,
Right.
and it's true. You know, if you see someone that's, you know, it's safety first over everything. And
Mhm.
you know, if someone's near something, you're not going to let it go. And
Which is a
it's only when it's
thing on a shot
yeah,
like that, because you've just, if it's halfway
yeah,
through, you've just stopped the whole shot, but you have to.
yeah. I think that's what comes with experience. I think it's learning not to really. There's a kind of there's you want the shot to look great, but
Mhm.
obviously it is all about people's safety. You want everyone to
Yeah.
go home at the end of the day,
Right.
and it's that's imperative to us. So we just don't, you know, if we see something dangerous, you take your finger off the button and you make
Mhm.
your box, you know, turn it off, don't make it live. So, but for us, like on that, I don't think there was one. I think it may have been a couple of pots that we didn't let off, but I think the majority of them we did, you know, and they look great. We're just showering lots of people in chalk and peat,
Yeah.
and I think, you know, that it was that shot with George. You know, he kind of made that shot really.
Yeah.
That
He was
tumble was
amazing.
brilliant, and
Yeah.
the way that he slipped back into the bunker at the end.
Mhm.
But you know, what a guy! What, you know, he was a real hero anyway in that film, wasn't it? We put him through his paces, and
Yeah. And
yeah,
what a great experience for all of us to be able to do it live. It was amazing.
yeah. No, it's magnificent. It really was. And I think we're such a talented team of people, you know,
Mhm.
even like the prosthetics guys, you know, that made those incredible dummies out.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, those horses, you know, Naomi did well with the makeup, the props department, and the set deck were just fabulous on that. I think everything was just brilliant, you know,
Yeah.
and of course the special effects department.
But yeah, of course. But
Yeah.
that's actually also another very interesting point, is how important safety is. And you have to provide that safety, because I know one of the earliest movies that I did, we had a special effects coordinator that hadn't learned that rule yet. And every time we had a big, and of course, there were a lot of things blowing up in this movie. Every time we had something like that, like he was supposed to blow out, there was a car on the street and he was just going to blow out one of the windows. So we did the
Yeah.
first take, and way down the street, across the street, he blew out the bank's windows, all these, because it was such a big explosion. And
Yeah.
every time we had a special effects um, type of shot like that, we were all terrified. So it is
Yeah.
really good and really
Yeah.
important to work with people that understand safety.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I've told this before. I think that one of the first films I ever worked on was kind of a sort of horror film, and it was a horrible film. And we were in a cemetery, and the idea of this coffin was in this grave, and it had to sort of blow up, like a sort of vampire moment. And
Like I've seen this movie.
no, don't. And I'm sitting there with a lens, really close, wide lens, close up, and I'm saying, "Is that I'm all right here? Am I? Yeah, well, yeah, fine." So it blew up, blew me back. It was a great shot. Blew me back. He burnt all my hair off. And I got him. I said, "Well, that was a bit strong, wasn't it?" And they put the fire out, and they found there was still 10 gallons of gasoline in the hole, hadn't gone
Oh
off.
my gosh.
So if the whole lot had gone off,
Yeah, you wouldn't
God
be
knows
here
what I'd done.
today.
I'd lost the camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I really appreciate guys like you that
Yeah.
really kind of on 1917. Yeah, there was kind of dangerous things going
Yeah.
on, but everyone felt so safe on that, which was,
Eh,
the way it
It's it,
should
it,
be, really.
And we
this is
go ahead.
this is where the prep time comes in,
Yeah.
and this is
Yeah.
where, we there is. I mean, I can tell you now that the testing is rigorous, and we test for everything. We often start with something and then work backwards from that, or we do
Mm.
this, we do, I mean, a lot of the stuff we do is the same. We always have to change it in some retrospect, to match what we're trying to achieve. But
Mhm.
um, uh, but it is all about the testing. I know that the bangs on 1917, they were tested thoroughly on the backlot beforehand. Different styles, what we could use, what we, but also things like, for when we did the bang on SPECTRE out in Morocco, I know there's huge amounts of testing for that. And then, Skyfall, testing, the train carriage coming through on the bottom
Yeah.
stage, all of that. It's all about, it's testing. And, down at Hankley Common, there's big tests that go on for that as well. Skyfall Lodge blowing up. And, there's lots of, everything gets tested, everything. And I think it's so important to do that, because especially if you're shooting on, and especially shooting anywhere, but on a stage, if you're doing a big bang and things like this, and there's lots of people around sometimes, that sometimes shouldn't be there on the set, or we try and clear the set as much as possible, or we try and make sure everybody knows what's going on. If that's us, the first AD has to just tell everyone. We inform the whole crew of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And every day now on a set, I mean, first ADs are getting so much better now. They will do health and safety talks throughout the day, or 1 a.m, they will just tell you exactly what's going on, and then right before you're about to shoot, one of us, floor supervisor, would usually get up and explain, this is what we're going to be doing now. We're going to be putting a fireball through the set, or we're going to be
As one
there's going
does.
to be a shootout. Yeah, shootout across the wall. So this is the noise. But we have to calculate everything, and we video everything, and we show the director, and we show the first AD what's going to happen. So then we create these zones on set where you don't go into camera, get them in there, but get them in a safe place. And but sometimes the beauty of a remote head these days, you can put something,
True.
but no, everything is tested, everything. And that's the most important part of the job.
Do you always work with the same crew these days?
I chopped and changed over the years. I'm sort of with the same crew at the moment. Yeah, we've been together as a team for probably the last 8 years now, 9 years, something like that. Well, I've been with that crew for about I did a lot of work with Chris Corbold.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Skyfall, and also I did Quantum of Solace with Chris. Some of the
Mhm.
earlier Bonds as well.
Right.
Um, and then been just working with Dominic for quite a while now, which is
Mm.
great fun. He's great to work with,
Yeah.
and he's just he's one of those guys. It's like us. He just wants to make that picture look great, and he's
Mhm.
all about making it work.
Mm.
So I've been very thankful to work with him and his crew. They're a brilliant bunch of guys, and we're all very serious about our work, but we like to have a bit of a giggle doing it as
Mm.
well. But
Mm.
and it is good fun, But
Mm.
no, it's great. It's been great.
So, I just want to ask you, would you would you recommend the work to somebody who's kind of interested in effects in movies? And would you recommend they go and stand outside a studio with their CV and try and get it to the security guard? Is that the way in these days?
I don't think it is the way in these days. I think it's, but I would recommend it. It's a great job, and it's so much fun. I think every day is very different. You are either testing something different every day. And that's the beauty of it. You never get bored, really.
Mm.
And
Mm.
it just isn't the time to do that. You'll always go and find something, that we're working on to be. It's all about the challenge, and if you are all about the challenge, then just come and join the team. It's great, and it is a good job. It's very rewarding, and takes a while to get higher up the ranks, but when you do, I think you get to see some amazing things. You get to travel around the world, some of the most beautiful places that you never get to see.
Right.
And
Live there. Yeah.
yeah, and also you get to see some of the worst places in the
Right.
world.
That too. That's very true.
Yeah, and I think one's got to be honest, and you also get
Yeah.
some wonderfully long hours.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I forgot
What
that
a
bit.
treat.
Yeah. I don't know what Dolly Parton was singing when she said 9 to 5.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
What does
Yeah,
that mean?
yeah, yeah. That's our lunch break.
Yeah. If we
No,
got one.
yeah, if you get one. No, I think it's great, and it's good for everybody. I think I'd love to see a few more sort of girls join the team,
Yeah.
and that's one thing we do have a lack of. But there are some very talented girls that work, in the special effects department.
Mm.
There's some very clever girls,
And
actually.
how do they get in? What's their route in? Is there anywhere they can train in nowadays?
I think it's kind of tricky, really. I mean, we do take on trainees, but I think if you were to want to get into special effects, you would need a knowledge of kind of a good either sort of a slightly engineering background. Hasn't got to be, we're not asking for rocket scientists.
Mm.
But it seems like you need to know how to make things work, be mechanical that way. Oh, if I
Mechanic,
put
yeah.
this with that.
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
go.
So your engineering, your fabricating skills need to be good. You need to be able to try and sort of make some things, put things
Mm.
together. I think you need to be creative. I think you need to have, a sort of flair for making things look great against camera. So you need to have that sort of creative side to you. It really is. And it's like many other departments, but it is the jack of all trades department, really. You need to be, you need to be good at plumbing. You need to be good at electrics. You need to be good at,
Right.
welding. You need to be good at, everything. And then you learn the other things a bit later on, like your pyrotechnics. You go on pyro courses. You can learn what different pyro does for different shots. And it's all about the methods. And a lot of the old school boys, we often write down our methods in notebooks still, how we got to a certain thing, or so. And it's a journey doing that. But I would recommend it to anyone. And if anyone is looking to get into special effects, then I'd say the doors. It's a busy time out there at the moment, and the door is open to a lot of people. So
Yeah.
it is your time to shine. You know, if you want to come in, absolutely.
Very good
Great.
there.
Well,
Right.
this has been really great.
Brilliant.
This is great. And I had all these questions and you answered them. Thank you. That I've
You're
always wanted
welcome.
to know.
That was,
No, it's great.
it's really brilliant. It was so nice you did this. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, that's all right. No, thanks for inviting me on.